What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here, NJ.com. Latest episode of the No Huddle Show, our midweek episode here with Mike Kaye. We're going to get right into it. There's some pretty big news to discuss that happened on Tuesday. It kind of came out of left field. We were in the press conference with Mike Groh, actually, which does no help for us. But we were in the press conference with Mike Groh, and we found out that Derek Barnett, the Eagles' young defensive end, first-round pick from a year ago, his injured shoulder apparently is still bad enough that he has to have surgery, and he'll be out for the season. As of this recording, the Eagles hadn't confirmed it yet, but Adam Schefter reported it, so I think it's pretty safe to say this is bad. I mean, not only beyond the fact that he's an important part of their defensive line, like this is just another injury on the defensive side of the ball. All of a sudden, they don't have any depth anywhere. Like this, it just seems like the season's falling apart right in front of our eyes.
So I think there's two ways of looking at this, right? So the negative is they are still in the hunt for the division race.
The negative is that?
Yeah. Here, I'll get there. They're still in the hunt for the division race. It seems like everything's kind of still within their grasp. It's just now you're losing a big piece because when he was healthy, he was the best defensive end on this team. It wasn't even close. And, you know, you've got your first quarter superstar, Mike Bennett, who does really well to start off games and trails. You've got Chris Long, who can create pressure on every snap but can't get to the quarterback. You have Brandon Graham, who has seemingly regressed a little bit, or maybe he overachieved a little bit last year.
Or he's still finding his legs even.
Right.
Which is possible, yeah.
And then you have two of those guys rotate inside, so now you've got this situation where you have three defensive tackles that are healthy, and you rotate Bennett and Graham in, and now you're not going to be able to do that as often because you don't have Barnett. Josh Sweat, as big of a fan of his as I am, his college tape is awesome, even though they played him out of position at the 6 technique and the 4 technique at FSU. He is really good. He's still a project.
He's played 8 snaps this season.
Right. So you're looking at a situation where you've got 3 veteran defensive linemen who seem to wear down towards the end of games, and you're losing Barnett, who is somebody who you're building for the future. And that brings me into the positive of this. Let's say this season is maybe a one and done in the playoffs. Maybe this is, they're just on the cusp of winning the division, but they end up 7-9. Him getting his surgery now allows you to not ruin next season, where he is going to be counted on as maybe outside of Fletcher Cox and Malcolm Jenkins, the most important player on the defense, because you're probably moving on from Brandon Graham. Chris Long's probably retiring. Michael Bennett, who knows? And then Josh Sweat, we still don't know. So he's getting the surgery done now. The season isn't at a loss. You can make up for a defensive end with stunts and doing some interesting blitzes, even though Jim Schwartz refuses to blitz consistently. I don't think it's as damning as it seems on the surface, but it is bad. You know what I mean? Like I think the bright side is a team that's kind of lacked foresight this season is benefiting from doing the surgery now, in my opinion.
I agree, and I don't think it's damning right now necessarily, but the way I think it's damning is that it's just like another thing on top of all the other issues they've had. They've lost Rodney McLeod. Sidney Jones is out right now. They have no depth at any position on defense. So I wonder.
Hey, but they still have Darren Sproles on the active roster. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to make the joke.
You're right. That's the thing. So now, maybe this injury, it kind of has me thinking. There's a lot of talk about they need to make all these trades. Everybody thinks they need to make like 4 trades. Any team that needs to make 4 trades is not going to win the Super Bowl. That's the reality. Number one. Number two, you have to start thinking now like they shouldn't be trading for somebody that's a short-term solution. A lot of these guys they've been rumored to be interested in, even a Le'Veon Bell or a LaShawn McCoy, for example, who I don't think they're going to trade for either of them. But those are short-term solutions in reality. Mm-hmm. And this team is not going to win the Super Bowl. In my opinion, I think you could make the case that this team is not going to win the Super Bowl this season. And okay, they can win the division still. I just think if you're making a trade, you have to do it thinking about the future. You can't trade away these draft assets. They have a lot of them. You can't trade them for a short-term solution. And I tweeted earlier on Tuesday that it's starting to feel like it's getting towards becoming a lost season. And I don't think the season's lost yet. They can't win the division. They just haven't shown any reason to believe that they will.
Yeah, they haven't won 2 games in a row this season.
They can't win on the road.
You can't win. Well, they beat the Giants, but
that doesn't count.
That's up the turnpike. So, look, yeah, what's frustrating is you got the carrot in front of you. It's just like you don't know if you have the reach to get there, and I think that's the frustrating part. If you're Doug Peterson, I think that's why he's been a little cagey lately. You don't want to be that team that has the Super Bowl and then you've exerted all your energy and then you're like 6-10. Like that very rarely happens, but it happens. Just ask the Ravens; they've kind of been enduring something like that. Look, the Eagles have been snake bitten this year, and you can look at it with an objective eye and say, "Wow, they are dealing with a lot of injuries." That said, a lot of their offense is still around. They have their 3 best offensive players. They still have all of their starting offensive line.
They have Carson Wentz.
They have Carson Wentz, who everybody talks about. You're only going to go as far as your quarterback takes you. He threw for 81% on Sunday, and they still lost. So there's something fundamentally wrong here. You know, the Eagles want him to throw for 70%. That's apparently become the new norm now, according to Jim Schwartz, which... that's news to me. I thought 65 was where you wanted to kind of top out. I mean, obviously you'd want better, but from a consistency standpoint, and he's completing 71% of his passes?
Yeah, he was 80% against the Panthers.
Right, yeah, so, what more can he do? But the problem is you're not taking advantage. They're stepping on their feet. This offense is going to have to carry this team, and I don't know if they're capable of doing it. The defense, Howie Roseman, you wrote an interesting column the other day about how the offseason really kind of is impacting this season now, as it always does, but but the lack of foresight, it's not just foresight. It's in-season roster management has been horrible.
Shoot, Dexter McDougal was signed on Tuesday, and he started on Sunday. This was a dude who wasn't on any team for a month.
And he might be one of the smart in-season moves that they've made, to tell you the truth.
But the fact that they needed him to start on Sunday, that's just a problem. Well, and he's not the first one. Jordan Matthews did the same thing. Kamar Aiken has been cut 3 times, it feels like, and he started when he first was signed. Trayvon Hester was on the practice squad 3 weeks ago, and now he's their starting defensive tackle.
Bruce Hector, bounce on and
Josh
off.
Adams played a big role right after being you shouldn't be playing, if you're a Super Bowl defending team, you should not be playing practice squad players on Sunday. That's just
3
weeks
into the season.
Even if they've looked good, Trayvon Hester looks like a player. Bruce Hector looks like a player. Josh Adams might be a player, but they shouldn't have gotten that opportunity yet, is the reality.
But, what's frustrating is that what I think is frustrating probably from a fan perspective is that you've stacked this offense with numbers, and half of those guys aren't contributing, and then you have 10 offensive linemen. Why do you need 10 offensive? I get you want to build for the future with Pryor and Jordan Mailata and all those guys. That's terrific.
Chance Warmack does not be on the roster.
Chance Warmack's still on the roster. Darren Sproles has missed 6 weeks and was not put on IR. Sheldon Gibson's rarely ever used. You have 3 quarterbacks already. You didn't trade Nick Foles. There is too much offensive talent on this roster that's not being used or utilized and helping you bridge the gap. And on defense, your defense is being put together by sticky tack because you don't have the numbers to make up for them. It's ludicrous to me that they have 7 healthy defensive linemen on this team, and 3 of them are defensive tackles who need to be in a rotation. This is a platoon defensive line, and you're only 2
These guys have to play full time right now.
Right.
It's not a platoon anymore.
It's not a platoon. And so, on top of that, you have 2 linebackers who are playing pretty well, in Nigel Bradham and Jordan Hicks. And then you have corners who are extremely inconsistent. You have maybe the most versatile safety in the entire league in Malcolm Jenkins, who is being hampered by the fact that you have nothing around him in the secondary.
They don't play Rasul Douglas.
They refuse to play Rasul Douglas, which is really annoying. One of those
weird things. It used to be something that Andy Reid would do. There'd always be a guy that he wouldn't play for some reason.
Yeah, you know what? Guy. I try to be as even keel and as objective as possible, but when you look at what Rasul Douglas has done when he's played, it makes no sense why you wouldn't move Jalen Mills into nickel. It makes no sense.
Jim Schwartz said on Tuesday he would only do that if Sidney Jones was out for the season, and because Sidney Jones is week to week, which makes it sound like he's not going to play again this week, by the way.
Yeah,
which is bad. that I agree that Rasul Douglas should be playing.
Well, and they've muffled this whole nickel cornerback situation because they've moved Devontae Maddox to free safety. He only started playing free safety in week 4, and they should be looking for a free safety. They shouldn't be looking for corners. Like, this is one of those things where it just seems like they don't have a plan 2 weeks in advance. They don't have a plan. They've cross-trained all these guys. I'm using
how many times can they tell us that?
Okay, cool, you've cross-trained Rasul Douglas. He doesn't have, it wouldn't help him to play nickel. You say he's not a true free safety. You know who isn't a true free safety either is Avonte Maddox, and you've moved him there.
What do you think it does for a young guy's confidence that they signed a guy off the street, played him ahead of him like 100%? Like that, I don't understand how they've handled that. So,
I saw Rasul Douglas. He looked frustrated in the locker room. I'm not going to project. I don't know that for a fact, but he looked frustrated.
It's just weird. And going back to before when you were talking about they kept these 10 offensive linemen. It's a minor thing now, but so why'd you keep Chance Warmack instead of Stephen Means?
Right.
They were just,
you could have saved $2 million and kept Stephen Means.
Overloaded on offensive depth with guys that shouldn't even be on a 53-man roster when they needed the depth on the. They got, I don't know if they got cocky or they got complacent or what the deal is, but they cut these guys that they didn't need to cut. They signed guys that they shouldn't have signed when they could have signed somebody else. Corey Graham, there's a reason why he wasn't signed until August. Maybe he says he wanted to play for the Eagles, but maybe...
They banked on him. That's a problem. You don't bank on... if somebody says to you, hey, you can have a job in 6 months, but we don't know for sure if we're going to have the right salary for you, do you sit there and say, you know what? I'm going to bet on that 6-month job and not take it. I mean, and not look anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's just to me, it's
weird.
Here's the thing. So the coaches are getting frustrated with the media for asking questions. The media is getting frustrated with the coaches.
By the way, terrible sign. It's never a good sign when when the coaches start attacking the media.
Correct. The media gets frustrated with the coaches because they don't have anything to say. It's only week 8. What are we doing here? It's funny because we'll preview London down the road, but this London game was the NFL's big deal for the season.
The Jaguars might be a bigger mess than the Eagles.
I mean, they're in the same boat. The Jaguars have a great defense. They have no offense. The Eagles have a really good quarterback, but he can't get out of his own way, and neither can the offensive line. They don't have a running game. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't think they're punting on the season. I don't think that Barnett makes or breaks the season. I just think this is going to be a grueling week-to-week grind.
Yes. Well, and I don't think Barnett specifically tanks the season, but him on top of everything else kind of does. It's one of 10 different things that is what's tanking the season. And we both have kind of criticized the Eagles for this, and maybe people haven't in general, but I think it's time we look at the 2017 draft and realize that they're kind of partly in this predicament right now because of that one. Because you fill out your depth chart with draft picks, and out of that draft right now, I mean, you can't. Injuries are injuries. Mm-hmm. Derek Barnett out for the season. Sidney Jones, they drafted a guy who was injured, and he's injured now. It's a different injury, but Rasul Douglas, they refused to play. Mac Hollins on injured reserve and didn't look great before that. Shelton Gibson, they refused to play. Nathan Gary, injured. Who knows when he's coming back? He has 12 different injuries.
Yeah, I mean, really, he was collecting them
Never
all.
seen anybody have multiple injuries listed like that before. Elijah Qualls was cut, and Donald Pumphrey was just signed back to the practice squad after nobody else wanted him.
Take that, critics!
Maybe people got a little too ahead of themselves with Joe Douglas's ability to evaluate talent.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair.
This 2018 draft looks pretty good, but it's super early, and it's kind of banking on Mailata becoming something, and then you're banking on a 7th round pick.
Well, I mean, I think Maddox and Sweat, if the two of them can
as
develop.
an overall draft.
Yeah.
I mean, still you don't know what you're having to Sweat yet. Maddox looks like a keeper.
Goddard's
really good, and I like Sweat. You like Sweat. And you'd hope one of Pryor and Mailata pan out. So that could be.
I liked
draft.
Pryor coming out of the
that also
draft.
That also is only a few guys, and they clearly had a lot of holes in their depth chart they weren't able to fill because they traded all those draft picks last year to help go for the Super Bowl, and it worked. But that 2017 draft was bad. Their offseason was bad, and they're paying the price now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you are the Eagles, you have to be thinking to yourself, "Wow, we really need to nail this 2019 draft because."
It already was the most important draft in a long time, but now it's doubled.
I mean, look, you had to do a lot of things so you could get Carson. That was the golden goose. It's understandable.
And it worked.
It worked. And you're always going to have some sort of, regression over what happens with quarterback trades. That's just part of the risk. I mean, Derek Barnett was a great pick.
The reality is, even if the player you get in a trade where you give up a lot of draft pick works out, you still are hampering your depth chart because that you fill out the depth chart with it. I mean, that's the risk they took when they did that. But I mean, them missing on the 2017 draft was the bigger problem here.
Right. The alternative is you could be the Browns, who have a plethora of picks and have done nothing with them for 12 years. So, look, Howie made the right decision by trading for Carson Wentz. He did not make the right choices in the 2017 draft. That running back class was might be the greatest of all time. And he came away with Donnell Pumphrey, who had the biggest media scrum I've ever seen for a practice squad player in my life. But
I saw a tweet where somebody listed all the great running backs from that draft, and I'm going to pull it up right here. Okay, I'm just going to go through it. Okay, Leonard Fournette, number 4. Christian McCaffrey, number 8. Sounds like the Eagles would have picked him if he fell to them. Dalvin Cook, 41. The Eagles wanted to pick him by the sounds of it, but the Vikings traded up ahead of them. Joe Mixon, 48. Alvin Kamara, 67, which might be the toughest one.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't fault them for any of the picks before 67.
Yeah, agreed. Kareem Hunt, 86.
Yep.
James Conner, 105. I'm not sure people knew that he would be as good as he's looked this season. But he is good, so it's a guy they didn't get. Tariq Cohen, Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones from the Packers, he's pretty good. Chris Carson in the 7th round. Like, everybody missed on Chris Carson, so, like, that's the kind of thing you're like, okay. But just all of that, like, together, it factored in with the fact that the guy that the Eagles picked hasn't carried for the team and has been cut by 2 teams, including the Eagles, in a year. Like, that's... I mean, look, maybe they're not getting hit enough for that. I don't know.
Well, and they went heavy on offensive line picks this draft, and
on guys that weren't going to play this year no matter what.
Well, and on top, I just think, like, when you look at not signing LeGarrette Blount was an issue. It was very clear that was going to be an issue. The second he signed with Detroit, there should have been a collective gasp. He is the guy that kept that running back room together and playing well. They
banked on Sproles.
They banked on Sproles, which banking on a 36-year-old running back is probably
5'6" running back who we all love Sproles and he's amazing, but we're like no.
It's unnecessary cat. Like, I understand Jason Peters. I get it. Whatever.
Yeah.
I won't fault them for that. I mean, they should have signed somebody
He's still
else.
At least a league average at left tackle. Like, Darren Sproles can't even get on the field.
Yeah, and this hamstring injury, they should have immediately
It's lingering to the point where it's like, why is he still on the roster?
Well,
what's he going to give you?
Here's the thing. Here's what's frustrating. If he misses London, he's missed 7 games. You can come off IR after missing 8.
Exactly. So they could have filled that spot with a safety this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
defensive tackle.
Yeah, look, they're it's pretty ridiculous the way they manage this roster.
So let's keep talking about roster building. I think we should. Eagles have been tied to a lot of rumors the last couple of days.
Sure.
It was before the Derek Barnett stuff. A few of these guys. It's interesting. I feel like we should talk about this. So I'll list off a few of them. We can bang them out. The main. Oh god. Okay. The main one obviously is Patrick Peterson. So the Saints traded for Eli Apple on Tuesday, which they were considered one of the main candidates for Peterson, which makes sense. Although they don't really have many draft picks, so I don't know how that would have worked. But So the Eagles, according to reports, have been like trying to talk to the Cardinals for a couple weeks now. We've talked about Patrick Peterson quite a bit. Going into what we said earlier, like if there's a guy that they're going to get that can become a piece of this team going forward, you go and get him. Because maybe you don't even necessarily think about the specific positions they have needs at, but he makes a lot of sense. I think they should go for him if they can. You could trade them Ronald Darby and maybe a second-round pick. Maybe that's enough. Ronald Darby's pretty good. He's young. He's the kind of guy the Cardinals can give a long-term contract to. I don't know. That kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Cardinals are asking for, but
yeah, if you really want to connect the dots too, Ron Rivera praised Ronald Darby quite a bit the other day, and Steve Wilkes comes from Ron Rivera, so maybe he's got an interest in Ronald Darby. And Peterson wants out, so you might as well swap that. The Cardinals have money, so I think it's going to take more than a second.
Yeah, I do
Darby.
too.
I think it's probably going to be.
I'm saying you can get a good offer. Like second and Darby is probably the best start of an offer they're going to get, unless the Patriots swoop in with something.
It's probably a first in Darby for a second and Peterson, if I had to guess. Which makes sense because and then maybe like a 3rd round pick too.
Yeah. So at that point, the Eagles have 3 second round picks and they can move back up into the first if they need to.
Peterson. The thing that's so special about him, he's never missed a game. He's never missed a game.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that until you tweeted it.
Yeah, durable. Okay.
He's been a Pro Bowler every season of his career.
Of his career. Durable, smart, good locker room guy. It's shocking to me that he's been openly wanting out first, because he is such a good locker room guy.
I mean, I think that says a lot about the mess of Arizona, but yeah.
People complain about Mills and Darby a lot. Part of the reason why Mills and Darby struggle so much and people don't think they're good corners is they can't handle number one guys. You trade for Peterson. Peterson's the guy that follows the dude around. He's worth moving your corners around, and you have Mills take on a number two guy.
You have more versatility, which is the big thing that they need right now.
Right, he can play all three cornerback positions.
I mean, Jenkins and Mills can switch off in the slot, like that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would greatly help Jenkins.
Yes.
A lot of people have been out there saying, we need something for the they need something for the offense. I saw a fan write the other day, we need a running back, blah, 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 blah. Well, you don't need anything. The Eagles need them. But this they seem very bullish about this offensive personnel, and I think the defense needs a game-changing defensive back, because this defensive backfield is so inconsistent. I think it would help Avonte Maddox at free safety if he had Peterson. I think Peterson helps the entire secondary. So,
yeah, he's that good.
He's that good. You've got a guy that can shut down a number one dude. You've got you make Jalen Mills' plate a little bit cleaner. Maybe you trade Rasul Douglas instead of Darby, and that gets Douglas out.
Yeah, right. I mean, clearly they don't value him. So.
Right. Yeah, and then sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
That's true though.
But then you have Dexter McDougal and Sidney Jones, sparring off at nickel, and then if Darby's gone, whatever. The safeties would be helped by the coverage, and I think you've got to set them up for success. And I wouldn't be shocked if Howie made two trades.
Would or wouldn't?
If he did make two trades. Peterson would make sense, and then I think you trade for like a lower level rotational defensive end, somebody like a Chris Smith or a Bruce Irvin or somebody like or Jerry Hughes is the guy that I think is the
Bills, yeah.
I think Jerry Hughes is the guy that makes the most sense. He's making $6.35 million this year. He'll make the same salary next year, the final year of his deal. You're going to lose Graham probably. You're probably going to lose Chris Long. Bennett, who knows? He can be that veteran guy opposite Barnett. He's 30. Still productive. I think he has 4.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. The Bills are a sinking ship, and they're going to have a garage sale soon.
People still have garage sales?
Yeah, well, a sinking ship with a garage.
Yeah,
I know. I made some analogies. I didn't even
consider that. I was just thinking, wait, do people still do garage sales?
I know, but I wrote it earlier, and I've been thinking about it for the last hour and a half because I'm that person. But to me, Jerry Hughes makes a lot of sense. I like Chris Smith. From the Browns. I covered him with the Jaguars for a while. He's a guy that can come in as a rotational pass rusher, speed, edge guy. Just signed a 3-year deal with the Browns, but really hasn't been productive. Derek Morgan would make a little sense. I think he's better off in a 4-3 as a defensive end. He hasn't played very well for Mike Vrabel. So, I mean, Brian Arakpo is another guy that could make sense. Dante Fowler I keep getting asked about, but I don't think the Jaguars trade him when they know they're going to get a third-round compensatory pick, and they're still in contention for
It would be kind of funny if they trade him to the Eagles right before London. So he's going there anyway, so he has his passport right now, so he's good.
Yeah, at least there's that.
At least he has his passport.
Yeah, so, and I think there's a couple of free agent options you could kind of look into, too. But overall, maybe they make a trade on defense and offense. I really like the idea of them trading for Peterson. I could see them trading for Carl Joseph. He would make sense.
So another one real quick. There was another one that they apparently talked to the Broncos about multiple guys, and amongst those guys included Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. I don't believe they actually won him. Chris Harris, I think his name is, the cornerback.
Yeah.
And Bradley Roby.
Well, so Roby's the guy for me. I mean, he's not playing well this season.
Exactly. Which is why you can buy low on him, and he shouldn't be one of your top two corners, but he can be your third corner.
See, he and Harris can both play nickel, and that's what I'm interested in. If you're going to trade for a corner that's not a number one shutdown guy, you need to trade for a nickel. That's basically what you got to do, because then you realize that Sidney Jones is going to be your outside guy next year, and that is what it is. That's fine. Chris Harris has been very good in nickel. Roby was the third cornerback for several years. Now he's a starter and a featured guy, and not really working out all that well. Emmanuel Sanders, if they got Emmanuel Sanders...
I think we talked about this on the last pod, maybe. Yeah, he's perfect.
It's like a wedding party. Every bit, people are lifting people up in chairs. He is the guy to me offensively that makes the most sense for this. Of all the people that get rumored and thrown out there, Emmanuel Sanders makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I think you and I are both in the same boat where, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not
don't tell me what boat I'm in. You love boats, by the way.
Yeah, clearly. I'm a nautical guy.
I just saw by the way, not to cut you off, but I just heard they're doing a new Titanic in 2021.
Why not?
They never learn. They never learn.
Why not? Which is weird because 1912 was when anyway, this isn't a history lesson. I'm not for trading for a running back. I'm not. No. I don't see any benefit
unless
to them.
You're not giving up anything.
I think now's the time you're looking at practice squads and saying, hey, which one of these guys had really good college tape, who had a good preseason, which I think they need to do. I don't think this three-man running back...
Unless the Lions will give you LeGarrette Blount for a conditional sixth-round pick or something.
And he's the guy... He'd be the one guy that I'd be like, all right,
that's what I'm saying.
I get it.
They should not be giving up... they clearly don't value the running back position because they've just ignored it pretty much.
Right, they don't value running back and they don't value linebacker, and I get that. I think that makes sense.
But they need... In the future, we've talked about this. They just need pieces that complement each other better because I don't think Smallwood and Clement are different enough.
Yeah, they're not, and that's part of the problem. The offensive line didn't do a very good job run blocking this past week. But again, if you're going to trade for somebody, you're trading for a wide receiver with at least 2 years left on his deal, or you're trading for a young safety, or you're trading for a number one corner, or you're trading. So here's what I'd say in the issue in fairness of the five positions. Peterson, your number two thing would be a young safety that has talent and upside. Third would be a veteran defensive end. Fourth would be a really good speed threat wide receiver. And then five would be a nickel corner. So I think those are the five areas of need that they really need to attack. Defensive tackle, I think they're fine. I get the vibe that Timmy Jernigan may return this year. Having him out at practice makes sense. It's not a report, it's just an assumption. And if he came back and Haloti Ngata was able to get over his calf injury, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, okay, we can end on that note. Before we go, I just want to we got a comment on our Spreaker the other day. We've been asking for these comments, and you guys have listened to us. We got a lot on YouTube, too. We'll start reading those off. We're in a little more of a rush today because we're getting ready to go to London, actually. But Marca Manginelli wrote on Spreaker, really enjoy this podcast, and it's refreshing to hear your takes as I feel so similarly. So he's a smart guy. The nostalgia of bringing back all these vets is not working. They will resemble those Phillies teams after the World Series win. Holding on to guys too long if they don't make the appropriate moves. This is on Howie and his personnel to fix. He agrees with us. What?
Hey, look.
Thanks, Mark.
I made it.
That's all we need to hear. Just approval on things we say. Now, you guys can disagree with us. But yeah, leave comments on everything. We're on all the apps. Make sure you subscribe. We'll start reading them off more consistently. I promise. We're on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud. The next time you hear from us, we'll be in London. You make your return to London.
Yeah, my epic return. They can't wait to see me, I'm
Cross
sure.
the pond, as they say.
Here's the thing. Here's what I want you guys to do. This is your homework assignment. If you guys are international listeners, please, please, please leave us comments. Where are you guys going to be if you're going to this Eagles game? We want to hear from you. We want to have you potentially on the show. We might be able to get some sound bites. But, that's the thing. The two of us really want to get to know the Eagles fan base. We're both a little bit newer to the beat.
So we're going all the way to Europe to find them.
Yeah, right. It makes sense, right? Well, we live in New Jersey, so But yeah, so leave us comments. Where are you going to be? What's the bar you're going to, or pub, I should say?
Pub. Yeah, come on, get your lingo right.
What's the best place for an exchange rate? We want all that. London food is terrible, but if you have any suggestions there too, I'm ready for you. And we'll see you at Wembley, hopefully. Amazing atmosphere. So if you've never been and you have the ability to somehow get tickets,
we'll tweet out some photos if you're not. So
we will.
It'll be kind of like you're there.
They're all going to be with probably Les Bowen's head in the way, but we'll figure it out.
Hey, you can't win them all nowadays. All right. We'll see you guys in London. Thanks for listening.
Deuces.